morning, everyone. I'm Martin Newhouse, and I welcome you each and all to our service this morning, wishing everyone a happy Father's Day and a happy Juneteenth. This is the first of our summer services, and because we're celebrating both of those holidays, and also we're always celebrating the weekly joy of being together, both in person and virtually, our service today is dedicated to poetry. It's a service where you, the members of this church, have been invited to bring your favorite poems to read or to have read this morning. What is poetry? Matthew Arnold, one of the great teachers, critics, and poets of the 19th century in England, defined poetry as simply the most delightful and perfect form of utterance that human words can reach. And he further said, a criticism of life under the conditions fixed for such a criticism by the laws of poetic truth and poetic beauty. And we're all familiar, I think, with the famous words of the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, who wrote that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world, meaning that what was needed to make the world moral and just was to be found in the minds and works of the poets. Archibald MacLeish, another great American poet, once said in a lecture that I attended that not only is poetry all this, but it is the poets who tell us not only what is real, but what is to come. And then I ask us not to forget that poetry can also make us laugh, such as the poet David McCord's famous epitaph on a waiter, which goes as follows: by and by, God caught his eye. But the main point of the service today is that poetry speaks to each of us in a meaningful and important way, and each of us may have a favorite poem that speaks to us in a very special way, and today is meant to celebrate this. But before we commence with our celebration of poetry, please pay attention to these short announcements. After worship, those in the sanctuary are invited to social hour on the Bell Tower Terrace. There will be no virtual social hour, but all are invited to a conversation about today's service on Zoom at 1 p.m. The Zoom link is listed at the bottom of your order of service. And we've instituted this practice this summer of, rather than have a discussion right after the services, having it on Zoom at 1, so those who are watching the service virtually can participate, if they wish, in the discussion. So that's why we're having Zoom. So we'll have our social hour, go home, eat a quick lunch, and hop on Zoom. Again, also after the service, there's going to be a period where the worship team for the summer is going to be talking to or speaking with those who are going to be doing services to sort of explain how they're going to be working. So we'll let you know when that's going to start. Next Sunday, the service will be a combination of live elements and pre-recorded service provided by the Unitarian Universalist Association, and it's called Woven in a Single Garment of Destiny. Also, due to the 4th of July holiday, there'll be no worship service on July 3rd. I also have an announcement from the Pastoral Care Associates. The Pastoral Care Associates invite you to a virtual conversation on, quote, dying well, how to have a peaceful death. And that'll take place on Saturday, June 25th from 11 a.m. to 12:30. Contact the church office in order to register. Before we in the sanctuary now greet one another, I invite all of us in the pews to offer a friendly wave to those live streaming at home. So let's just wave to those live streaming at home. And now let's take that moment to turn and greet one another.
we open our hearts and minds to the spirit of worship with this poem by Shalyn Harkin, The Worst Thing We Ever Did. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky, out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made, a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul, in every breath. I now invite Nancy Scott Newhouse to kindle our chalice flame, and I dedicate our chalice with these words by Angela Herrera. What do you do with the secret verses of your heart, with your need for redemption, the story without words, with paradoxical truths, too private and nuanced to share, that cannot be printed or spoken aloud? You weave their energy into a poem, carefully, carefully, over and under and through, luminescent strands that cannot be unteased until the poem is shot through with light from an unknown origin. Let us rise in body and spirit to join in singing hymn 326, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. We've come to the time in our service where members of the community are invited to come forward to share a personal joy or sorrow they carry within. And then after they share what is on their mind and heart, to then light a candle. This is the first time that we are live streaming summer services, so I just want to remind folks that what you share in this moment is being live streamed, so people in Japan and Antarctica and Detroit can hear you. And we save our services on our website so they would be available to be heard later. So I just invite you to bring those parameters to your sharing. And before we go into the formal ritual, I want to give special thanks to Margaret Lowry for not only tending the flowers in our garden, but harvesting them and having them be part of our candle table. Thank you, Margaret, so much. Yes. I would clap too, but I have my hands full. It has now, in the same way it's become cliche to offer thoughts and prayers in the wake of a shooting, it's sort of become cliche to light a candle. But I do want to acknowledge the shooting in Alabama at a church where people were just coming together for community fellowship and a potluck. And so before I light that candle, I want to offer these words by Jan Richardson, "A blessing when the world is ending." Look, the world is always ending somewhere. Somewhere the sun has come crashing down. Somewhere it has gone completely dark. Somewhere it has ended with a gun, the knife, the fist. Somewhere it has ended with the slammed door, the shattered hope. Somewhere it has ended with the utter quiet that follows the news from the phone, the television, the hospital room. Somewhere it has ended with a tenderness that will break your heart. But listen, this blessing means to be anything but morose. It has not come to cause despair. It is simply here because there is nothing a blessing is better suited for than an ending. Nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when the world is falling apart. This blessing will not fix you. It will not mend you. It will not give you false comfort. It will not talk to you about one door opening when another one closes. It will simply sit itself beside you among the shards and gently turn your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you as the world begins again. If you do have a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to come forward, and when we speak before the community, we are welcome to take off our masks to assist those who might need some lip reading.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm Donna Reed, and I just want to express the joy that I felt last night. We went with Paulette Taggart's family and many of their family friends out for dinner, and it was just an incredible experience. Everyone was telling stories about Paulette, and I felt, as I always feel, that I learned so much more about my friends sometimes after they've died. Makes me a little sad, but it was just a spectacular time, and the memorial service was beautiful, and it just left me with many memories of Paulette and wonderful times together sitting in the corner over there at Paulette's salon, as we used to call it. So that's all.
Hi, my name is Dennis Brett. It's good to see so many people here today in the first summer service. I want to share with you that our younger son, Corey, and his wife, Gina, had their second child last week. Leo Edward is his name. And so for all of you out there who have grandchildren, it is such a blessing, to see. And I know that some of you, all of you, probably a lot that here do. And it is such a blessing. So I just celebrate the birth of grandchildren.
Welcome, Leo Edward, and congratulations, Dennis and Cindy.
Morning. At some point, many of us are going to go through a period of some sort of a trial. And my message this morning is when you're going through that period, it's always good to have someone close to you. And my appreciation this morning is my wife, Sheila, who, when I was recovering from, my back surgery, she was the most cheerful, willing, helpful individual you want around. And I just thank you, Sheila. So I think I am where I am today because I've had someone like Sheila next to me. Thank you.
Hello, I would like to thank everybody for being here. I didn't know how summer services were going to go, and I'm really pleased that they're going so well. And it's hard to see Paulette go, and it's hard to see Linda go, and Sam, and all the other people who've gone, and as the people you've talked to. But it is really rewarding to see that we have lots of people who are still around. Thank you.
A candle of gratitude for community and for the very important children and cats. Thank you.
Of course, the children and cats too.
Yes. In a moment, we will be together in a time of shared silence, and out of that silence, we will sing hymn 296. But first, I wish to light one last candle for all the joys and sorrows that are unspoken in our hearts. Let us be together in a time of silence.
now we come to the time where there'll be a communal sharing of poems. And I have a list of people who've told me ahead of time that they have a poem to read, and we have one poem that will be read because its poet is not here, able to be with us except virtually. So I'm going to call on the people who've given me their names, but if anybody else feels the urge to come forward with a poem, feel free to do so once these people have read us their offerings for today, their poetic offerings for today. And I'm going to start with June Edwards, who asked to read a poem.
A person I greatly admired for years was the Black poet Maya Angelou. She was also a singer and a book writer, a college professor, civil rights activist, and she had, I don't know how many volumes of poetry, most of which I haven't read, but the poem I chose today I thought would be a good one for Juneteenth, and it's called American Family. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight. Brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, yet not one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China. We weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways, we differ. In major, we're the same. We are more alike, my friends. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. And we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
Thank you, June.
Yeah.
And then, John, I believe you have a poem by Amy Hunter to read.
Yes, thank you. This was sent in by Amy Hunter, who's hopefully watching online. And she wrote this poem on the night last year that Jupiter and Saturn aligned, which is only once every 80 years. And she dedicates this to her daughters, Allison and Caroline, to be read 80 years from now when Jupiter and Saturn align again. A poem from Jupiter. 80 years from now, our jovial planet will appear to take a reluctant Saturn by the ring again. And you will see them dance close to light up your sky. They may not seem to align any more from where I am, but you may be pulled to follow them as wisdom pulled others to take a dusty trail, to follow the light to a birth thousands of years ago. If mystery still unfolds, you will feel my quantum hug leaping through time and space that night. Watch for me, but it won't matter if it's cloudy or if your eyes are blurry, or if you're with me by then. The beam of light and love I will send has always been sent and always will be sent. Signs like planets aligning are just a tap on your shoulder to say, I'm here, loving you always and forever. Our celestial dance whirls and spits out light and love from the darkest black holes heaven ever conjured up. Through the other side, light really does escape, and that will be me, shining as a beacon, so my love will take you by the ring again. My earth-sized storms, just a sampling of my infinite reach. Daughters, planets, sisters, space. 80 years is but a second for me to find you again.
Thank you, Amy, for your lovely poem, and thank you, John, for reading it. And now let's ask, Margaret Lowry has a poem.
This is a very short poem called Herb Garden by Timothy Steele from his book of poetry, Toward the Winter Solstice. And I'm dedicating it to the new structure around the herb garden that was inspired by a trip to Midland, Michigan at the structure that they used at their community garden. And also dedicating it to my husband, Brad, who helped me plan it and put it together. The lizard, an exemplar of the small, spreads fine adhesive digits to perform vertical push-ups on a sunny wall. Bees grapple, spikes of lavender or swarm, the dill's gold umbrels or low clumps of thyme. Bored with its trellis, a resourceful rose has found a nearby cedar tree to climb and to festoon with floral furbelows. Though the great heat-stunned sunflower looks half dead the way it, shepherd's crook-like, hangs its head, the herbs maintain their modest self-command. Their fragrances and colors warmly mix while querying between the pathway's bricks, ants build minute volcanoes out of sand.
Thank you very much for that lovely poem. And now JJ and Naomi have a poem, or maybe two.
This is from the house of Pooh Cornell. Here lies a tree, which owl a bird was fond of when it stood on end, and owl was talking to a friend called me, in case you did it hold, when something occurred, for lo, the wind was boisterous, and planted out his favorite tree, and things look bad for him and we. I've never known them worse. Then Piglet thought a thing. Courage, he said. There is always hope. And I want a thinnish piece of rope, or a thickish, or if there isn't any bring a thickish piece of string. So to the little box he rose, while Pooh and Owl said oh and And where the letters always come, called letters only Piglet scrolls, he had his head and then his toes. Oh, golly, and Piglet, ho! Did Piglet tremble? Did he blush? No, he struggled inch by inch through letters only. As I know, because I saw him go. He ran and ran. And then he stood and shouted, help, for Owl a book and Pooh a bear, until he heard the owls coming through the wood. As quickly as they could, help, and rescue, Piglet cried, and showed the others where to go. Sing ho for Piglet, Piglet ho! And soon the door was opened wide, and we were both outside. Sing ho for Piglet, Piglet. Sing ho for Piglet, ho, ho.
And our second one is the one I chose. I like a lot of poems from Paul Fleischman, Joyful Noise. Chrysalis Diary is the name of it.
November 13th.
Cold told me to fasten my feet to this branch,
To dangle upside down from my porch,
to shed my skin,
to cease being a caterpillar.
and
I have obeyed.
December 6th.
Green
The color of leaves and life
has vanished.
The
empire of leaves lies in ruins.
I study the brown new world around me.
I feel the future.
I hear few sounds.
Have any others of my kind survived this cataclysm?
Swinging back and forth in the wind, I feel immeasurably alone.
January 4th.
I can make out snow falling.
For 5 days and nights, it's been drifting down.
I find I never tire of watching the flakes in their multitudes passing my window.
The world is now white. Astounding.
I enter these wondrous events in my chronicle,
knowing no reader would believe me.
February 12th.
An ice storm last night.
Unable to see out at all this morning.
Yes, I hear boughs cracking.
And branches falling.
Hungry for sounds in this silent world. I cherish these.
Ponder their import.
What's that say? Measure them in my memory and wait for more. January 28th.
I wonder whether I am the same being who started this diary.
I felt stormy inside.
Like the weather without.
My mouth is reshaping.
My legs are dissolving.
Wings are going. My body's not mine.
This morning, a breeze from the south, strangely fragrant.
A red-winged blackbird's call in the distance.
A faint glimpse of green in the branches.
And now I recall that last night I dreamt of flying.
Thank you so much. Now, is there anyone who hasn't sent in their name who has a poem to read? Donna?
This is from a book of poetry written by a friend of mine who lives here in Winchester, Rosemary Sullivan. And this poem is called 7 Years. It was a lovely summer scene, packing up the car for a Cape vacation. Two chattering little girls and a baby girl, 3 months old. Her entourage, porta-crib, nip and nap, blankets and bottles, all carrying that sweet baby smell. And best of all, an adoring grandmother to happily lavish love on baby while others scrambled off to the beach. The beach, home to crabs, shells, and sand dollars, provider of building material for numerous castles and moats. Then back to the cottage for showers and hamburgers, planning the trip to my brother's September wedding, enjoying our rather passive role of groom's family, mostly concerned with coordinating colors and such fluff. The evening knock at the door prompted puzzled, uneasy looks. More uneasy when we saw 2 policemen. Still more uneasy when they asked for my mother. Her suddenly thin voice inquiring, "Is it Harold?" My father had chosen to remain at his retirement job rather than join the family fun this time. Telephone calls, arrangements, bits of information, arrangements, more calls, and questions, mostly unanswered. Images of my father, fallen with a stroke, inching his way to the telephone, now at least safe at the hospital. Safe? The once tan face blends into the white sheets now. The hearty laugh has become a forced, uncertain smile. Speaking in a small voice, he says he is fine and tries to tease me, but we are relieved when he just rests. Watching him, the picture blurs. I see a man getting out of his car, fishing pole in hand, proudly displaying speckled trout, then proceeding to fry them. Or I am waiting for the car to pull into the driveway. Finally it does, with a deer languidly lounging on the front fender. Equilibrium. It doesn't mean much unless you don't have it. After the stroke, my father didn't have it. Something about his circle of Willis and the flow of blood to his brain. What it really meant was 7 years in a nursing home. 7 years of visits in April and July. April, when he blew out his birthday candles with our youngest daughter who shared his birthday. 7 years of lessening eye contact, brought on by lessening recognition. Did my daughters not realize the truth, or were we pretending for each other? Sometimes we opted for an October visit, and one October, all recognition was gone. Then my father left. Once again, the telephone calls, arrangements, questions, more arrangements, and then it was over. Driving the 310 miles home, I allowed myself to confront the 7 years. For the first time, I viewed them as I would a documentary. It was about a life that had drastically changed and how everybody, including that life, learned to cope. It was like living on a continuum, sometimes less sad, sometimes more sad. Then I slowly slid off the continuum. No purpose would be served staying. My father, with his sad eyes and freeze-frame body, was gone. The picture blurs, and he emerges from his Bel Air Chevy, MetLife book under his arm, winking and asking if Mom has made a blackberry pie for dinner.
Thank you, Donna. I'd like to read a poem, if I may. This is a poem that was written 100 years ago and goes to the idea that poets not only depict reality, but predict reality. It's a very famous poem. It's Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? Now I'm going to ask my wife Nancy to come forward with an interesting poem.
So I'm going to read a poem by J.M.W. Turner, who's a great artist, if not actually a very great poet. And I have with me, this is a rendition by one of my favorite senior students at Brandeis this year. And she gave this to me because the slave ship of Turner is being very much prioritized right now at the MFA in Boston due to the Turner Modern World show that's on. This is only the far left-hand part of the painting, which she has created in an abstract way, and she actually printed the words of the poem that he placed alongside the painting when it was first on view in London at the Royal Academy in 1840. The painting was one of 7 works that he had created that year. He had been exhibiting for 50 years, having started as a teenager. He was 65 years old. So this was a kind of swan song, I suppose, of many things that had happened during his lifetime. So here's the poem. And it has 2 voices, I should say. The first one is from the slaver himself, the captain who is going to create mayhem and horror on the high seas. Aloft all hands, strike the topmast and belay. Yon angry setting sun and fierce-edged clouds declare the Typhon's coming. Before it sweeps the decks, throw overboard the dead and dying, ne'er heed their chains. And then the narrator asks, hope, hope, fallacious hope, where is thy target now? Where is thy market now?
As we were preparing for this service, we recognized some themes that were coming together, which is naming the sorrow and the fear of this time and in the past, but also on this day of Juneteenth, the sense of possibility and of freedom. In all things, I emulate June. I brought a Maya Angelou poem in recognition of Juneteenth, which I think is a good companion to Nancy's powerful piece. This is Caged Bird. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through the bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn bright lawn as he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
Thank you for that wonderful poem. Anybody who wants to join the Zoom at 1 p.m. and has a poem that they didn't want to read here or didn't have a chance to read, you'll be able to do it on Zoom. It's now time for our weekly offering. And obviously, we're here. We believe in this church. We believe in its mission. So that being said, let us all try to give as generously as we can. We are not sharing the plate this summer. So whatever you give today, the entirety of it will go to support the good works of the Winchester Unitarian Society. There are different ways you can donate. Those attending by live stream will soon see the information. You can give cash here, a check here. One can mail a check to the church, but please write in the memo line that your offering is for today. Or you can text 781-230-6690. And if you text and write a number in, you'll get a lovely thank you almost immediately by return text. The morning offering will now be generously given and gratefully received. Those who wish to do so are invited to join me in reading the affirmation of shared ministry. We gather not for ourselves alone, but to use our common power to build the beloved community within and beyond these walls. We create and reaffirm this covenant this day to make justice flourish, to practice compassion amidst difference, and to embody transformative love. And please now rise in body and or in spirit to sing our final hymn, hymn number 309, Earth is Our Homeland.
We close with words by Nikita Gill. Someone is talking to me about the light at the end of the tunnel, and all I can think of is after. What happens after we meet the light, after the grief ends, after we walk into happiness? Won't there be another tunnel, another painful passage, another trauma simply waiting? And the answer is yes. Because in the book of being, life promised to be a moving thing. It promised to be both fight and flourish. It vowed to be both lesson and respite. So the love will end, the light will end, the joy will end. As we keep walking, we find it again. Go in peace. Amen.
Before extinguishing the chalice, I'd like to thank Margaret Lowry and Liz Lintz for agreeing to be both greeters and ushers this morning. Would you please join me in reciting the words printed in your order of service for extinguishing the chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our service has ended, but our life of service continues. Now let us adjourn to the terrace for conversation and refreshment.